Welcome to Therapy Unlocked, where we discuss all things therapy from an unlocked perspective. I'm Emily Huffman, and I'm here with Katrina.
Hello, Katrina Mondragon, licensed professional counselor. I am a professional, but not your professional, so nothing we're going to talk about today should be taken as medical, legal, or otherwise advice. This podcast is purely for education and amusement. That is it. That's the disclaimer.
Education, amusement, and because I would like to be famous. So please like, subscribe, follow, engage.
And welcome to Therapy Unlocked.
Hi.
I'm high.
Oh, are you?
Yes.
Let's talk about that.
I think we should.
At least the medical side.
I think it's time that people discuss this a bit. And by time for people to discuss this, I mean, it's time for people to hear us discuss this because they've been talking about it for all of time.
Yes.
Like
cannabis.
Cannabis. I believe cannabis is even mentioned in the Bible on more than one occasion.
That's outside of my scope of expertise, but I do know a bit about medical marijuana and cannabis as far as its medical uses. We are in a federally illegal country, but a medically legal state. And that's actually, Oklahoma is a medically legal state now for how many years? Since 2018?
I believe so. Yes, since about 2018. I just renewed my license for the third time. So background on Final Girl M, I have Ehlers-Danlos syndrome and a host of comorbidities that would scare anyone. I'm not even going to rattle them off, or the comments will be filled with utter confusion because I myself deeply confused. But I'm made of Play-Doh, essentially. It's very painful. And sometimes my body just does not work right. And for many, many years, I took opiates to manage my chronic pain. I had to go to pain management. And when I say I took opiates, I mean, somehow I graduated college with those big, huge tumblers of narcotics.
So that would have been about
through every day.
They reeled that in. I want to say about 2016, 2017, they started to reel in the opiate prescriptions, and people started to realize, okay, well, at least in Oklahoma, I want to say that they say you can have either your opiate prescriptions from pain management or your medical marijuana. You cannot have both. They make you choose.
Some places are, just to reassure anyone watching, some places are keeping up more with the times now on that.
Okay.
That is not necessarily a diehard
everywhere
rule by any means, especially given a case-by-case basis.
Well, what was your experience? Did you switch yourself?
I discussed it with my doctor. I discussed it with my primary care physician, and I know you don't remember, but I was a late adapter on that one because at the time I was in college, money was very tight, and it was expensive. It wasn't something that I thought that I could afford to do.
That is something that people wonder about, whether it's cost effective, whether it's in their budget, and what forms of ingestion are there. People hear cannabis and automatically think smoke. That's not the case
not
nowadays.
necessarily.
And it's not just edibles either. Some people think edibles and, those don't work on me, whatever. But there's, how many ways to ingest are there? There's not just smoking and vaping. There's topicals, tinctures, teas.
Oh, you can vape it. You can melt it. You can put it on a brownie. There's all the ways that you can do a weed now.
Tea is one of the healthiest I've heard, as far as like if you have the means to make a tea.
We used to make tea out of the seeds and stems and keef when I was young, and it was deeply illegal.
When you bring up an important point, something I wanted to mention is the entourage effect. So there's these isolates that are being, like these compounds that are being isolated in research for research purposes, the THC, the CBD, the CBN, the individual components of cannabis. However, there is this entourage effect that people get from the whole plant. So when you see full extract or full extract cannabis oil or full extract edibles or whatever the case is.
Full spectrum,
yes.
Or like the Rick Simpson oil.
Yes.
It was like a full Simpson.
You're more likely to get the entourage effect and the synergistic effect of all of the cannabinoids and their whatever it is that they do magically. And I say that magic is just science that we don't quite understand. And while we're talking about the benefits, we will get to the risks, the dangers. But what other benefits would you say there are?
What? I wasn't saying anything. I don't know what you're talking about. If you're watching the video right now, then you got a secret piece of information. That said, though, I would say that the benefits are so numerous for my personal life and experience. But the one thing I will say before I go on to praise marijuana up, down, left, right, and around the corner is that I don't believe, save extreme circumstances, that anyone under 25 really needs to be smoking marijuana.
And the reason for that is probably brain development.
Yes.
Because we're still in adolescence until about 25 to 27. Our brain is still growing.
I beg anyone in audience to go ahead and wait. Let your brain matter finish expanding. This is a scientifically proven fact. And it's not just smoking marijuana or marijuana in general.
Any ingestion of cannabis in any way, shape, or form before your brain is fully developed can have adverse effects.
Right. So that's the first thing that I will say. If you are younger, even if you think it could be of medical benefit, the prescriptions available may be better for you in the long run because of your brain development than using cannabis. So I'll say that first. And I will also say that some people on the autism spectrum or whom have ADHD or whom have other mental health concerns may have an adverse reaction to cannabis.
It's interesting that you brought up those two, because I've heard those two being two diagnoses that it's helpful for. The ones that I've heard that stay far, far away from cannabis is like if you have a diagnosis of schizophrenia or anything with psychosis. So if you have even if it's depression with psychosis or bipolar with psychosis, anything with psychosis.
Postpartum depression can turn into psychosis.
So, and all psychosis is not weird or wrong or bad or anything like that. It's just seeing or hearing or smelling something that isn't necessarily there, seen or heard or seen by others.
Yeah. No, there is some research that indicates, and also I have heard anecdotal evidence from peers, but there is research that indicates that ADHD and autism, people on the autism spectrum, can have an adverse reaction to marijuana and to the effects of THC on.
So we're getting a little bit outside of my scope. I wonder if that is because of the emotional dysregulation.
Probably. And also becoming overstimulated, now, is it a olfactory hallucination? No, probably not. Someone with autism's nose is that sensitive, right? So you add marijuana to that and their nose is already sensitive and they're smelling something in the room that no one else can smell. And then their rejection sensitivity may kick in or something else along those lines. And they're going to have a harder time regulating, similar to alcohol, than they would not with a substance influence.
So that increase of focus that the cannabis gives you post-consumption, like not immediately post-consumption, but about 2 hours post-consumption, they say there's sometimes an increase in focus. Mm-hmm. That would not be wanted by everyone, is what you're saying.
No. Imagine your typical empath in a detective show or a movie that is, having to help solve the crime, therefore having to touch the victim or touch the criminal or something along those lines. And then they're just flooded with an onslaught of input, just too much, right? So being on the spectrum, being on the autism spectrum or being ADHD can feel like that. And if you add an intoxicant, which period, marijuana is an intoxicant.
Yeah, if you're not driving, you're obviously not okay. And obviously you don't need to be behind the wheel if you're under the influence of any cannabis or anything like that.
We're probably buzz killing people, and it's probably not what they expected.
So let's go back to the benefits.
My initial coming in here, which is why I'm now going to say, I love weed. I'm an avid gardener.
And I don't pathologize cannabis, meaning it's not always a problem. Do some people have a problem with cannabis? Sure. However, just because somebody has cannabis in their medication management does not mean that they're living in fear because of the fact that they smoke cannabis. No, let's treat the problem, not say it's a problem because you smoke cannabis.
Exactly. So, the benefits of cannabis use, and I have one other thing we'll have to cover before we finish recording, but the benefits of cannabis use in my personal life was the almost complete eradication of opiates from my life.
Which can be really hard on the organs.
Oh, absolutely. And also were incredibly hard on my mental health. Being on opiates, I was receiving those tumblers of pills, like I mentioned earlier. I was being given so many things. Like you said, they didn't have as many restrictions around that time.
Right. For those of you who don't know, pre-2016, they handed out opiates like candy.
They really did. And from 2009 until 2018, regularly, I was on an opiate, a muscle relaxer, an opiate and a muscle relaxer, a steroid, an opiate, a muscle relaxer, and a steroid. I had 4 nerve ablations.
Steroids are those ones that they say don't take long term either.
Right.
Those
They
are
don't,
short-term.
and I became incredibly heavy because I had an adverse reaction to the steroid usage.
Oh, I didn't know they made you like people. What, can steroids make people gain weight?
Absolutely.
Oh,
Absolutely. It's not a die hard, if you're put on steroids, you're going to gain weight kind of thing. But like, given my unique makeup, it messed with me.
kind of like how
You know?
some antidepressants will give people the munchies in the evening,
Yes.
and you have to resist that. Or speaking of munchies, do you get the munchies from the cannabis?
So I do that on purpose. I need the munchies.
So that's a
As
benefit.
part of my Ehlers-Danlos syndrome, I have experienced incredible appetite loss to the point where I am basically not hungry anymore. I have symptoms of idiopathic constipation, gastroparesis.
Do you ever
kind
get
of
the
thing.
xerostomia or dry mouth?
Yes.
How do
I
you
do.
deal with that? Do you
I
get those
do.
little lozenges or like I know they make gum.
I have to drink so much water that also the dry mouth benefits me, because another side effect comorbidity of Ehlers-Danlos syndrome is a condition called POTS, which is a major influence on my life, where I have to take in a lot of extra liquid. And
In layman's
honestly,
terms, POTS is where you go from, like, let me see if I can explain it, from like laying down to seated, and your heart rate goes through the roof for no reason.
not for no reason.
Not for
So,
no reason. What is the reason?
POTS is actually not a heart condition, though most people think it is, okay, because it causes tachycardia.
I thought it was an autoimmune condition.
It is not an autoimmune condition either.
Oh,
it
we're learning
is
today.
an autonomic nervous system disorder.
So you're ANS.
Yes. My autonomic nervous system does not function correctly. And if we find out this weekend that I also have narcolepsy, that'll be another one. But we already know that my autonomic nervous system does not function correctly, because when I change positions in a significant way, or I even change speed in the car, or change temperature, if I go from being very cold to very warm, or vice versa, and the most significant one being from a seated or horizontal position to standing, I will experience a drop in blood pressure and an increase in tachycardia, because my
your
blood.
sympathetic nervous system just goes poof.
Yeah. Another thing is that my blood is thicker, so my body is working harder to push it through, and I have a hard time holding on to water. So I need, what electrolytes do for you is they hold the water. They
It's not
make
just
your
what plants
cells
crave.
sticky. They are not just what plants crave, but they do have what plants crave. Get
And
yourself an
July
extra
4th,
big ass
UFC.
taco from Carl's Jr. today.
And July 4th, UFC at the White House.
Oh my God, what?
A topic for another time.
Oh, okay. Jump scare. Clip it. That said, dry mouth is a benefit too. Appetite increase is a benefit. I would say, I'm going to list just a bullet point list here. Pain relief, number 1. I am in near constant pain. I don't complain a lot about it,
Can
but
you
I
scale
am.
it like pre-cannabis? What's the pain level? Post-cannabis, what's the pain level?
Like during a day, or like
On average, yeah.
just on average? Oh, pain is a 10. I mean, when you have chronic pain, you need a different scale. I particularly like the one that starts with like, it's probably like usually other people's 10s, but like, it's like, I can tolerate this. And then it moves up to, this is not tolerable, and then from there it's like B's, and then it's like B's. Okay. Like, I'm
So-
usually sitting at B's.
And the cannabis brings you down to like B's.
No, the cannabis brings me down to, I can tolerate this.
Oh.
It literally gives me the ability to enjoy any form or faction of my life. And when I do not have that, like when I was pregnant with my son, And I just had to live with and experience the pain. I had very romantic feelings for my toaster. I did. So anybody who wants to say that cannabis is not helping anyone can fight me in the Kmart parking lot.
You mentioned
because it helps me.
Another effect of cannabis that a lot of people mention and experience is called euphoria. And that is not an adverse side effect. That is not just getting high. That is something that is synergistic within the entourage effect, I think. And so that pleasant euphoria that you get from an otherwise, well, let's just call reality.
Well, and I have terrible news for the viewers watching along at home.
That's all the time we have for today on Therapy Unlocked. Please join us next time as we continue the conversation. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join us as we continue the journey to unlock the mind, one conversation at a time.
What I talk about today should be taken as medical, legal, or otherwise advice. This podcast is purely for education and amusement. That is it. That's the disclaimer.